We are live. All right, welcome to the studio today, B. How you doing today, man?
What's up, man? Good.
Good to have you in here, brother.
Good to be here.
Man, we've got an exciting podcast today. We're going to talk about rent control. First, we want to thank you guys for listening to Buy the Block with Bryan Chavis. I'm your co-host, Nathan Johnson. We got Bryan Chavis in the building. This is the podcast where we teach you how to buy, rent, and profit from rental investing. We hope that you guys are enjoying the podcast. If you are, please like, share, subscribe. We appreciate all the support. And if you find this helpful, we just ask that you just share it with a friend. What's been going on with you today, B?
Nothing much, man. Just preparing for our June event.
Yeah.
Our certification, 2-day Buy It, Rent It, Profit Live certification. Just preparing for that. Preparing for the launch of Chavis Capital.
Yep.
Man, just a lot going on.
You've been out speaking quite a bit. I saw you over at the Tampa Bay RIA, the Real Estate Investors
we were at
Association.
the Tampa Bay RIA, and we'll be expanding our brand with other, educators.
Yep.
Through our licensing, Buy It, Rent It, Profit Education licensing program.
Love it.
Just a lot going on. Excited, a lot of exciting things to come. Special shout out though. I was watching another YouTube. Was it Graham Steffens?
Yeah.
Graham is blowing up and doing a lot of big things. Got his own Netflix. So just wanted to give a special shout out to him for always mentioning Buy It, Rent It, Profit. Haven't had the opportunity to speak with him directly, but just wanted to give a special shout out to Graham for always being so willing to talk about the book Buy It, Rent It, Profit as one of those books that inspired him to do what he's doing today. So that's big shout out to him. Special thanks to him. So man.
Yeah, I love it. That was really exciting to hear. Graham Steffan, one of our favorite YouTubers, actually mentioned that your book was the book that was the catalyst that helped him get into the rental real estate. So, yeah, very exciting.
Yeah,
and, we always appreciate hearing those shout outs.
Absolutely.
Speaking out against rising rent prices, and they are demanding the city declare a housing state of emergency. We've got people threatening to sleep in tents in front of City Hall. Mm-hmm. People are saying that the rent prices are too high, and they're talking about drawing up some type of mandate where the tenants get to vote on rent control, for a year. And so I have questions about that. I mean, how do you feel about that as someone who manages rental property? I don't want to say my personal feelings, but, as someone who owns and operates rental property, what are your thoughts when you hear about things like that? Price of paradise, people living in St. Pete, saying it's too much to live there. They can't afford it. What do you think about that?
It's several thoughts. The initial thought is it's always a housing issue.
Yeah.
But it's as much as it is a housing issue, it's also an employment issue.
Okay.
So, wages haven't moved. So inflation has moved, but wages haven't really moved. So it's, who's marching on the employers?
Right.
Who's marching on some of these businesses demanding raises? I mean, I would argue that you probably should be pitching a tent out in front of your employer,
right?
And looking for a raise to be able to keep pace with inflation. So is it the landlord's fault? Because the landlord, the operator, the owner operator of the apartment community has to offset inflation as well.
Okay.
So we have expenses too. Therefore, we have to raise rent.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I get it. But it's not just a single housing issue is what I guess the point that I'm getting. So yes, you could pitch a tent. Yes, you can do these things, and you can even be effective.
Yeah.
In getting some sort of mandate. But all you're really going to do is drive housing out, period.
Right.
So investors like myself will sell.
Yeah.
And move to other locales where, these issues don't, exist.
Yeah.
So you're really, in the short term, is it a win for for an organization or a community to come together and put rent control, it could be viewed as possible as a win for them. But they'll see shortly that, as individuals decide to start pulling out, that they're going to have a housing issue in general.
Yeah.
So then they're going to want to march about, well, there's no housing. No one wants to come in and invest, So, it's not, So it's like no matter what you do, there's going to be some sort of
course.
Ripple. When you throw that stone into the pond, there's going to be a ripple.
Yeah.
And it's not just the housing. It's not just an employment.
Right.
So, I don't want anybody to call or text or message or jump on YouTube or anywhere else on social media and say, well, Bryan thinks it's just I'm an employer. I own a small business and I employ you. Now you're going to have them march. I mean, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm just saying that, hey, listen, it's not just solely a housing issue. It's employment wages haven't increased.
Right.
I'm not saying that, hey, look, it's your employer's fault. I'm just saying it's not just solely a housing.
No, that makes sense.
So it's something you got to look at. And then, and then it's not just the employer, it's not just housing.
Right.
But we also have to look at, the municipalities.
Right.
Because property taxes are crazy.
Okay.
So, rising rents are typically a knee-jerk reaction to, what an investor, an ownership group has to pay in property taxes, the increases in property taxes and insurance going up. So like I said, it's not just, and the employer is going to say the same thing. Well, wages haven't gone up because our cost of doing business has gone up. So, the employer is going to have the same argument as the owner and operator of housing has. And one last point, when people ask, well, Bryan, what do you think about rent control? I'm like, I've always had rent control over me.
Right.
It's called fair market value. Yeah. I'm dealing with it right now.
Yeah.
I'm having to move the rents, adjust my rents lower because I'm not getting enough traffic on a certain unit. So I know based on the community, the demographics and psychographics, I know when enough is enough.
Yeah.
Because the tenants they'll have some inquiries. We'll have a ton of inquiries, but no movement on that unit.
Right.
It'll sit vacant.
Right.
So an example, I try to push, this is 500 square feet at best, studio, the heart of downtown St. Pete, right where they're marching. I try to aggressively push the rents to $1,500.
Yeah.
I got it for select units. But overall, the $1,500 is too high, so I moved to $1,495. See what the traction would look like. Got a ton of traffic, got a ton of leads, ton of traffic, but no applications consistently across that at that price point.
Right.
Like I said, I've got some trickles in at $1,500. We got a couple of leases at $1,500. You know that, but consistently, 10 applications or 10 inquiries, 7, site visits. 4 applications. Right. That's consistent. We're not getting that at $1,495. So it's like, I'm moving from $1,495 in between $1,495 and $1,425.
Right.
All right. So trying to find that happy medium, that sweet spot.
Right.
So, at $1,495, there's no movement. So the market is telling me that's what? Too high.
Too high. Yeah.
Too high. Yes, you're getting some inquiries. You're getting some looks. But no one's leasing.
Right.
So the market will always correct you and tell you. Now, these people that are marching, right? The problem, and again, you said you won't get into your personal view, but I will because, they're essentially talking about me in downtown St. Pete. So let me address these individuals marching. You can't always get to choose where you want to live.
True.
Financially, you may not be able to live in downtown St. Pete. Right. Fact. That's just fact. You're marching on downtown St. Pete. You want to live 2 blocks from the water, 5 blocks from all the shops and retail. I want to live on Star Island in Miami.
Right.
I want to live on Bayshore Boulevard overlooking one of the, the bay.
Yeah.
I want to do a lot. I want my own private jet.
I'd love to as well.
Right? Yeah. Work, but right now that it's not feasible. I got to work for it.
Of course.
So my point is, you may want to live in downtown St. Pete, and you can march all you want.
Right. But
the bottom line is you may not be able to afford, because there is a demographic that can afford downtown St. Pete. Yeah. Hence my occupancy being over 95% occupied. Yeah. So there are demographic and psychographic profile tenant that can afford to live there. That's who I'm targeting.
Right.
If you notice, the rest of those individuals that were talking about marching and mandates, that is not the young professionals that live at Park Plaza.
No.
Those individuals may not be able to afford or to afford to live in downtown St. Pete. Therefore, they may have to go further out.
Right. So I want to say something. I as I was reading the article, it was titled "The Price of Paradise," and I understand rent control, and I can see it as a national topic, but we're focusing on paradise. If you were to visit St. Petersburg, Florida, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen.
And you want to live there for free?
Yeah.
I mean, not for free. I mean, I don't want to,
No, I'm saying.
But you want to live there with some sort of rent control.
I would pay $1,500 all day.
Of course.
To live in paradise. So it's funny.
They wanted at $600 and $700.
Right.
You're not gonna get. I want to live on, like I said, I want to live on Davis Island, Star Island, and on some of the most expensive real estate in Central Florida.
Right. So I mean,
it's great.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask these questions on behalf of the listeners. Our goal is to try to help you own and operate real estate. Should people be scared of this as investors? I hear you saying, okay,
you should be concerned.
Tell me more. Why should you be?
You should be concerned because it's gonna eventually affect the valuations of these assets.
Okay.
You're going to see, if you're a current owner, you're going to see, property cap rates rise, which means values drop. You're going to see the interest to invest in these areas or develop in these areas. You're going to see, that drastically affected by the rent control.
Right.
So absolutely, it's going to be a negative, to an owner and operator, and it's going to be a negative to anyone wanting to come into the market as a new investor in the area because the ability to be able to forecast and evaluate pro forma and forecast future revenue, net operating income is going to be hindered because of the ability for anybody to put a cap on your ability to increase rents. Wow. And the number one reason why we get into this business, because especially in the multifamily space, it's you can outrun inflation.
Yeah.
And there's very few, if not, anything besides multifamily that allows, an asset that you can invest in to outrun inflation.
Yeah.
Meaning those short-term leases, 7 to 12-month leases, what I mean? Right. Those give you the ability to outrun inflation. Very few products are products that you can invest in, whether it be Wall Street or, or real estate in general, even, commercial or retail. Or office space, those leases are long. There's techniques you can use in those longer term leases to be able to offset inflation, with your the language that you have in your leases.
Right.
But the ability to really do it easily and effectively is really done through multifamily with the shorter term leases. You can really outrun that inflation. So your ability to utilize it, one of the number one tools is hindered by rent control. Okay. By someone telling you, hey, listen, no, you can't, charge 5% or do a 5% increase on your rents. That has a negative effect. And then what effect does that have on your waterfall structure?
That's true.
Because typically as a general partner, you're getting paid your pref, in your waterfall structure. If you promised a 7% return, anything above 7%, you split 80-20. 80 goes to the investor, 20 goes to you as a general partner. And as you increase the rents or the net operating income, the value of the asset, that waterfall might even move to a 50-50 or even to a point to where you're getting, after you promise them their pref, you're getting, a 60-40, 70-30 split, 70 to you, 30 to the investor.
Yep.
Well, with these rent caps and you now, the inability to grow the net operating income over time, drastically affects that waterfall structure and your ability to generate wealth as a general partner. So it's no longer attractive. Wow. And if it becomes no longer attractive, then you're going to have these issues. And then if you have these issues with no one wanting to invest in the municipalities that you're in, guess what? Then now the housing stock that exists, there's going to be downward pressure on that housing stock, which is going to drive the rents up anyway.
Right.
So these folks marching, it's a short win for them. Eventually, you drive all of us away, our investors away to a different, area, geographical area.
Yeah.
And we're no longer investing in Central Florida. It's going to be downward pressure on the existing housing stock. You're going to see a lot of developments stop, right? That pressure is going to create that supply and demand, and rents are gonna rise anyway.
Right.
So it's because of the supply and demand. A lot of demand, little bit of supply. You see that now in the housing market.
Yeah, true.
Why housing, the housing prices where they are is because there's very little supply,
right,
but a ton of demand.
Right.
So it's so prices are high. So it's going to it's not going to eventually work out for them.
Okay.
And again, the media. And when you're talking about getting votes from politicians, a lot of the politicians, are not savvy enough to understand how real estate works.
Yeah, true.
And how these cycles work. And, it's a knee-jerk reaction based on, trying to get a vote. Let me listen to what the people are saying.
Right.
But again, look at those who are marching.
Yeah.
Look at the demographics and psychographics. Demographics tells you who they are. Psychographics tells you the why.
Right.
Look at the demographics and psychographics of the prospect tenant and say, can you afford to live in some of these high-price areas? Right. The answer is no.
No.
But the media is like the price of living in paradise. The price to live in paradise is costly. You
Absolutely.
can't afford to live in paradise.
No.
If you work as a clerk at Walmart or a cashier,
right,
paradise is out of the option.
Right.
So I'm not saying it's always going to be out of the option. You've got to do what I did. You've got to figure out how to make adjustments. And, one day that American dream of home ownership
Absolutely.
or living in the neighborhood
Absolutely.
you want to live in, that's all possible. This
Right.
is America.
Right.
That's all possible to
Right.
you. But it may not be it someday.
Yeah.
It's just not today.
Yeah.
You can't afford to live there. So look at who's complaining.
Yeah.
You want to live in some of the highest price locations in all of Florida.
Right.
You want to live 2 blocks from the water. You want to wake up in the morning, sip coffee, and see the sun come up over the bay. That costs money. You know those folks pay millions of dollars
Absolutely.
for those views in those penthouse?
Yep.
You think you're going to rent something a block from them? They pay $5 million for their penthouse to see that view. You think you're going to pay $800?
Right.
It doesn't work that way. So you just, the media, of course, is going to the price of paradise, and they're going to only, if you watch those, and please post that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll
make sure you can watch it.
That whatever it is, that tutorial or whatever they did. But watch how the media, in this particular instance, News Channel 8, NBC, watch how they only gave you the view of those tenants.
Right.
Nowhere did they put an owner. No one found me. I'm easy to find, right?
Yep.
Hell, I'm in every bookstore in America.
Of course.
I'll pick up the phone, call me, and ask me. Well, I'll meet you out at Park Plaza and tell you the same thing I'm telling you now on this podcast.
Right.
Why they can't afford to live down there, and some adjustments and things we can possibly do to make housing affordable.
Absolutely.
There's tons of things we can do. I mean, talk to your local public housing authority.
Yep.
There's tons of places that you can go.
Yep.
There's tons of things, that if you want me to offer a certain percentage of my units to affordable housing, I'm down for that.
Yep.
But I need some tax benefits and some tax breaks. So there's tons of things that we can talk about.
Absolutely.
To be able to help. But ultimately, it's like understand that they're only giving the viewpoint of a certain demographic and psychographic of a particular prospect tenant.
Right.
And making that like, all hell is breaking loose because they want to live in one of the most expensive zip codes in Central Florida. And I'm not saying it's not a crisis either, Nate.
No, I agree.
But again, you've got to understand that, where do you want to live and understand, certain zip codes may not allow for it. But I don't want anyone to listen to this podcast and think I'm not sensitive to the needs of the individual.
No, 100%.
I'm saying that. I'm extremely sensitive. I'm just saying let's be realistic about where you want to live, and let's be realistic about what we can do for housing. Let's interview the housing authority, interview owners, give everybody a perspective, and listen to everybody's perspective. Then we can come up with these solutions. But just giving the side of the tenant that wants to march and pitch a tent, is just it's not helpful. No, it's good for media.
Yeah, it's great for media. And I didn't understand it until I got into this space years ago. I would have been out there, just as gung ho as them, but as you own and operate, you're like, wait a sec, man, this is a little off because I ain't out here being a slumlord. I'm simply following the rules. I'm raising rents at a fair price, and these guys are still upset.
And what's fair?
Yeah,
fair is what the market tells you.
Exactly. It's what the market tells you, and is it fair that you don't want to pay, and like you said, and you get to live next to the man with the $5 million
Is it fair that I can't play golf behind some of these gated communities and some of these, it's like, hey, listen, it's relative. Like I said, I'm not diminishing what these individuals are going through and the pressures of affordable housing. It is a crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has always been a crisis. But listen to these public housing authorities.
Right.
Speak with them. There's a ton of housing that is out there that they have, right? I won't say a ton because there is a shortage.
Yeah.
But, you bring in the minds. Let's, you can't listen to the prospect tenant march and then let city council make decisions. No, you got to bring in the housing authority. Yeah. You have to bring in owners and operators, and you have to be able to sit and have these conversations with all of us,
right.
Local business leaders. Everybody has to weigh in to really understand what the affordable housing issue is and how we can attack this, because there's many angles you can attack it. But just saying, hey, look, I'm gonna put a rent cap, that's gonna have disastrous effects on the overall value of assets in your municipalities.
So I have a question around,
which will have a negative effect on your tax rolls.
Right. So I have a question
as a municipality
about yours. So you talk about strategic evaluation of a target area. Mm-hmm. Where does this play a role in that, CIOTA? So, rent control, kind of a wrench out of this, out of left field sometimes. St. Pete does tend to have this strong social justice component to it. Is that something that you think about moving forward in your strategic evaluation of target areas?
Absolutely.
People are going to be, pitching forks, and
we must. Yeah, you have to, because if they get the vote passed, it's gonna have an effect.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I have to look at it, and any owner is going to look at evaluating the area as a potential opportunity. With this type of I don't want to call it a problem or an issue.
No.
With this type of possible negative effect on the net operating income.
Right.
And when you evaluate, they teach you in any kind of appraisal school, when you're evaluating assets, you have to look at local.
Yeah.
And micro and macro economics and government.
Right.
Laws change, and how will those laws change? That's why you do your CIOTA process, strategic evaluation of a target area.
Yeah.
Is to be able to understand and keep your finger on the pulse of the local municipalities and the laws, and how they can possibly change, and how those laws and those changes will affect your net operating income moving forward. No different than laws changing with Airbnbs and things of that nature, how that would affect net cash flow for some of these operators. So, it's a problem. It's a problem on the lending side. How are lenders? We'll bring Chad Musgrove in here and let Chad speak on, how is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and some of these bridge providers, how are they going to navigate this? But no matter what, they're going to tell you it's going to be a negative effect. They're going to look at it as a negative, because anything that hinders cash flow is going to be a negative effect. So they got to reevaluate, the type of debt and debt coverage ratios that they put on a project. And it's a domino. Once you hit that, man, and you say, hey, look, we're going to put rent control. Oh man, I just don't really think that the city council really understands the overall ramifications of what they set in motion. Right. And some of the things you set in motion are very difficult to rein back in.
Yeah. And and I'm not trying to paint this as a doom and gloom situation. I mean, we're always full steam ahead looking for investment opportunities and growing our portfolio. Just sharing as I see people come to us and they're creating syndications, and some people are over promising on things, or they're promising based on the fact that they didn't think about rent control. Five-year holds.
Listen, man, that is so huge that you mentioned that, Nate. It's like what a lot of these investors that have just recently bought. Yeah. And now they've got rent control, and you got these press out there, and you got these returns that you thought you were going to make. Right. And now there's rent control. Yeah. So, the thing is, like our listeners and viewers are probably thinking, what can I do? So let's just talk about a few things you can do. Number one, there's not a lot. Of course, you can protest and go down to City Hall, and you can have your voice be heard. Right. And I would rather you do that in getting behind a much larger group. So usually your local apartment association.
Okay.
You need to contact them. NAA,
Yep.
National Apartment Association, has, branches in every state and usually every municipality.
Right.
So you need to reach out to your local National Apartment Association branch. And for Florida, it's BAA,
Yep.
Bay Area Apartment Association for our area. Then Miami has one, Jacksonville has one. So every municipality has their branch. But reach out to your branch at the state level and the local municipality level. Find out what they're doing. Find out when they're going to march, because they will march as well.
Yeah, of course. Good.
One thing you can count on, yes, you're interviewing those tenants.
Right.
But if you're a diligent news, but obviously we know they're not about being diligent. They're about just getting eyeballs on their stories.
Of course.
But trust me, the National Apartment Association and our local chapter, BAA, and all local chapters all over are taking issue with this and are ready to go to Tallahassee and ready to fight on behalf of owner and operator. So, my suggestion would be to get behind them, find out what the rally call is, and get behind that and support and have your voice be heard as an owner and operator.
I love it. Man, B, once again,
NAA.org.
NAA.org.
I believe.
Yep.
So, or just type in National Apartment Association.
Yeah.
And find them. We'll have a link to this on the podcast. But that's my recommendation.
We try to provide you with all the resources you need to succeed. Speaking of that, please join us in June. We are hosting a 2-day certification to help you gain credibility, increase your influence in your community. It's called Buy It, Rent It, Profit Live. Come hang out with us in Tampa, and we want to provide you with all the resources you need to grow. So we put together a certification event where you're going to become a certified multifamily operator. It's just an amazing wealth of knowledge. We've got so many speakers, syndication attorneys, tax professionals, multifamily lenders.
Yes.
Bryan, underwriting.
They're going to be underwriting projects, teaching you how to underwrite from a lender's perspective. Chad is going to be doing Chad Musgrove, going to be doing a wonderful job. We've got landlord-tenant law attorneys.
Yep.
It's going to be you speaking on branding and influencing and how to create a brand.
Yep.
It's just going to be an amazing 2 days.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing 2 days. And so, visit buyitrentitprofit.com/live to learn more about that. We do hope to see you there at our 2-day event. That's June 11th and 12th at the Tampa Bay West Shore Holiday Inn. It's going to be just a fun event, full of knowledge, lots of networking opportunities. We really hope to see you there. And B, once again, thank you so much for talking about this issue, bringing it to light as investors is something we don't want to ignore. So once again, thank you so much for being in the studio and all the knowledge, man.
And just want to say one last thing before we go. Two things. If you haven't joined or signed up for a strategy call, please make sure you reach out to me, get your strategy call if you're interested in taking your multifamily career to the next level, or if you're interested in becoming a buy, rent, and profit educator and licensing our training materials to grow your brand. Reach out to us, get that strategy call. It's free. There's going to be a link at the bottom of this. Click on that link, get that free 30-minute strategy call. Let's talk about how to take you to the next level.
Yeah, let's do it.
And then lastly, this is not, I have family members that are looking for housing. So this was not designed to be a negative,
No.
We work closely with housing authorities.
Absolutely.
We understand that housing is a crisis. We just want everyone to understand and come to the table with facts, and understand that everyone can be affected, that even the owners and operators can be negatively affected. So it's not just the prospect tenants and the tenants that are losing housing that are affected, so just understanding that we all have to come to the table, but we are not, diminishing the fact that there is a huge affordable housing crisis.
Absolutely not. So, thank you so much for breaking that down, B. And once again, always pleasure having you in the studio, man.
Absolutely, man.
Hey, thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Take care.
Take care.